The exhibition was inspired by my anger at some of the anti-immigration narratives that were being put around in political and everyday life in the UK. I'm a third-generation Italian. My grandparents migrated to London in 1924, and I obviously grew up with them, and I knew their stories, and I wanted to see if there was a way through art that I could humanize these narratives, and by making them more human, maybe that instead of not welcoming people, we could think about the advantages of having migrants in the country and to welcome people, which would be a better narrative, I think. The story goes back to when my grandmother died in 1999, and she had brought with her a long white nightdress in her suitcase from Italy, which she wanted to be buried in. My family thought it wasn't posh enough to be buried in, and so I was given it to look after. And it's been sitting in my chest of drawers in my bedroom for nigh on 30 years. And I thought, when I wanted to make this work, that nightdress came to my mind. I've got to make it central to the work. And there she is looking at me. That nightdress became the central piece of work. So I thought about her. I thought about the fact that she did a lot of sewing and embroidery. And that is a very sort of female skill. And I thought it would be a beautiful way to represent her. And then I wanted to make it wider. How could I make it about migration? I didn't want to just make a sort of icon of her. And I decided that I would make the work about the contents of the suitcase she carried with her when she came to the UK. She was also carrying alongside a suitcase a small 6-month-old baby. And so a lot of the clothing here embroidered are baby clothes. The installation is, if you like, the explosion of the suitcase opening up and hanging here, showing everything that I imagined was in it. But I also wanted the stories to be real. So I talked to my aunt, who was 96 years old and sadly died 2 days ago. And she told me all the family stories, gave me the family photographs. And so I thought I would bring it all together, sewn into the fabric of what I imagined was in the suitcase. I didn't do all the embroidery myself. I was very lucky to work with the BA students on the Royal School of Needlework's course at Hampton Court Palace. And I taught them 3 times, and I gave them the stories, the fabric, and the colours to work with. And they came up with these beautiful artistic pieces of work. And I also worked with a group called Sleaford Embroiderers in Lincolnshire, and these were many women who'd worked in the embroidery industry all their lives, and they too have done some amazing embroidery. I just embroidered the piece that is my grandmother. I hope through reading one story, they'll be able to empathise with my grandmother's story and maybe think about what it feels like to be coming somewhere strange and how long it takes to feel you belong. I feel I belong. I'm third generation. But my grandmother told me she'd never been invited into an English person's house in the 70 years that she lived here. And I find that really sad. The lovely thing about the installation, in order to see all the work properly, I'm happy for people to walk through the middle of it, and I'm also happy for them to touch it and hold it, because some of the writing is very small and very intimate, and you need to immerse yourself in the installation to feel what it's about. This is the first time the installation has come to Scotland, and I'm really pleased to be showing here. I'm also showing it somewhere called the Edinburgh Printmakers, and they saw the possibilities of this show in their beautiful gallery where it sits as if it was made for it. Also, there is print on the work. The photographs are printed. Can art change politics? I think in this case, what I'm hoping is by humanizing the story, that it stops it being anonymous and it stops it being them and us, because by looking at the work, you understand one person's experience, and that must bring about empathy. So I'm hoping the installation does have an impact on people's minds and hearts, and maybe through that, long-term, on our political view towards immigrants. This might not be what people would expect to see in an art exhibition, but for people who don't come to exhibitions usually, I would encourage you to come, because this is about human experience. It's about my grandmother, your friend's grandmother. Many, many people have migrant backgrounds. You might just have migrated from Glasgow to Edinburgh. But it's about, when do you feel you belong? And I think it is through stories, human stories, that we learn to empathize and feel like it is to be someone else. And so I would encourage you to come. My story happens to be from an Italian background, and I know there are many Italians who moved to Glasgow and Edinburgh, and I'd love for them to come to the show. But anyone who feels they want to understand what it feels like to move and set up a new life, I think the exhibition has a lot of interest for you.